Okay, we're back. Parts are dry, and I've got some stuff laid out here, and got. Hopefully, I didn't forget anything. It's been known to happen. So anyway, I'm going to try this as the ground covering. This is a chalk paint. It is khaki. Um, I have some other stuff, cocoon, that Jason's Engine will use a lot to simulate concrete or cement or whatever you want to call it. And I thought between that and some raw sienna and whatnot, this would look dirty enough. And then, of course, once all the parts are on here and rusted, everything will get a black wash. So let me give this a try. I got a fairly stiff brush here. We're going to try this and see. I don't know how this is going to come out. There is a guy, I've seen him online. I watched some of his videos. He does not much in the way. This is not going to work. It's too stiff. I don't know if any of you have seen his videos. It's Boylei Hobby Time. He does dioramas, not a lot of model railroading stuff, but he will actually put everything together first, and spray paint it a lot of times together, and then he uses primes it, I should say, all together, and then he will use an airbrush and airbrush a lot of it, and then he will go from there with some detail paints. I'll put a link. I think we remember how to do that. I'll put a link to his. It's fun to watch if you like to do some. He does a lot of fantasy stuff, dioramas mostly, and it's fun to watch. As you know, always learn from everybody. He's got some very good ideas, and he has this wild imaginary West. So anyway, we're going to get this painted, and then we'll be right back. Okay, that's on. I kind of like that. Came out pretty good, but I think I need to stir it a little more. It doesn't seem to have quite. It's the first time I use this. It's been sealed, and I bought it probably a little over a year ago, and I never used it. When I first opened it up, I had to stir, but I think it still needs some more. Anyway, now we're going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit of raw sienna. I think that'll help. And let's get this brush. Maybe I will use the stiffer of the two. And I should maybe put on my grandpa glasses. There we go. Get some paint over here. Now, I'm not looking for full coverage of anything. This is supposed to be a dirty area. There's going to be rust. There's going to be dirt. I'm trying to get the hint of some of this stuff. The khaki, I covered it, and as you can see, when it dried, you can still see a lot of the primer coming through, which is fine. Again, this is an area where they threw their junk, and so it doesn't have to be pristine of anything. It's just got to be some coverage. And we'll get in here. But as I was saying about Boylei, if you like, he does Imaginary West fantasy thing, kind of a what if, and among other things. A lot of his stuff, it's really interesting. He has his techniques just like everybody does. And Wild Imaginary West. That's his that's his thing. I missed the wild part. Anyway, he has the Wild Imaginary West, and he has a lot of good techniques that many modelers can benefit from. And I see no reason, just because he doesn't model railroad, no reason why you wouldn't, watch somebody else's technique, right? We're going to dry this, and then we're going to start on the stuff over here. Okay, be right back. Okay, when you're satisfied, it's how you want it. This to me is fine. I think there's going to be, the scrap here. There's going to be rust stains. There's going to be dirt, black mixed in when we're done. I think now I can take this. You notice I still had it on the parchment paper. It's easier cleaning this mat up if things are sitting on something else. I know that's what the mat is for, but I get really tired of having to keep cleaning the mat. I get paint on it, this, that, and the other thing, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. We're going to start with, I meant to prime this white, and once I was outside the primer, I had a lot of trouble with the gray, and the white just didn't want to cover anything. It was pretty soupy, and it's the cold. So I went ahead and sprayed it with gray. That was the one I got. And now we are going to go ahead and we are going to use, I keep paintbrushes in here too for reasons. We're going to go ahead and use light buttermilk, and maybe even some buttermilk. You always go light to dark, and then we're going to go ahead and put some rust on it when we're done, and that will probably be once it's glued down. But we're going to go ahead and start with this. So let's do that. I'm going to dry this. Be right back. That thing's noisy. And to dry some of it so I could put my finger somewhere else. I don't know, my fingers always look like this. If you're painting, model painting, fingers always look like that. Dry it. Be right back. Okay, now we'll move to the buttermilk, and we'll just kind of put a little bit of that on there. I like the way that's coming out. This is, you figure this is an industrial area. Whoops, a little too much. And I'm not even going to take and clean the brush because it's just going right into this and going right into that. And we're not looking for full coverage here. We're just looking for just enough to make it look like it's paint's faded here and there. And again, when I'm done, this is all going to be rusty. It's going to be, and this was probably, you could, what was this? It's a confectionery outfit. So, this could have been, we had systems on shipboard that looked like big tanks like this that would put out fires. They would literally smother the fire in a compartment. You didn't want to be in the compartment when it happened. And this could be a fire suppression tank that, kind of out of date, got old. Who knows? Could be anything. Okay, we're going to try this. Okay, we got that one out of the way. What shall we do next? How about we do this? Get this brush clean. And this, I figure, was some sort of pulley system for a belt-driven piece of machinery or something, and it got a nice big chunk taken out of it. So they chucked it outside in the pile and put in something new, or they were redesigning their system from something belt-driven and to something a little better. You can have backstories for just about anything on your layout if you think long and hard about it. And why is it here? Why? How? You figure that maybe Hansel and Gretel Confectionaries was around since the story. After they got rid of the witch, they opened their own candy store. Okay, and they did it back in the days of belt-driven machines. I actually worked in a mill that had old belt-driven machinery in it prior to me joining the Navy. Lied about my age to get the job, and worked in there just for a few months until I decided to enlist. But you'd think this was 1979, and you would have thought by that late in the 20th century, mill would have switched to something a little more efficient than old leather belt driven machines. There were belts all over the place in the overhead. And a few times the belt would break, and they had a machine hand powered for fixing the belts. And you'd take the belt off and you'd cut the bad ends where it would break was right at where the seam was. It had a metal like a zipper there, and that's usually where it would break. But no matter where it broke, you cut the ends, and then you would put in that metal zipper, unless of course the belt was going to wind up being too short, in which case they went and found another belt, and you'd cut it to length and put that on there. Learned how to do that a couple times. Like I said, lied about my age. I was supposed to be 18 to work there, and I just turned 17. So they didn't check your age very much in those days. But I needed the job, so it was an experience. Learned a few things. And guys were hardworking, dealing with old machinery like that. Got to be on your toes. Some of that stuff didn't take too kindly to being used anymore. And sometimes they'd throw parts at you. Yeah. So, needless to say, I was pretty happy when I was able to join the Navy. I did not want to be working there for long. And something else, by the way, if you're not familiar with this, but the primer I put on these first, I primed them. A lot of guys do. This is plastic, and it's for lack of a better term, I want to say it's slick. It's kind of, you can rough it up with some sandpaper if it's a smoother, you don't want to, but if it's got something like this on it, detail, you don't want to mess up. The primer gives your paint something to stick to. Okay, it kind of bonds better with the rather than just painting the plastic by itself. you can do it. It's just going to take a lot of coats. Save yourself the headache. Set it down where you can prime it again safely. If you can't do it in a ventilated or well ventilated area, wear a mask. Okay, you don't want to be breathing that junk in your lungs. Prime it with get it shot with some primer. Let it dry, and then you'll have much better luck getting it painted, and much less frustration. So I'm going to shut up now and paint this, because right about here the wife's going to want to speed this up. I've got paint on my fingers. Again, it happens. There's no way around it. Okay, let's see. I want to paint this next, I do believe. And I think I have mustard yellow and I have school bus yellow. Wonder why I got that. And it's not open yet. Go figure. Yeah, school bus yellow. Yellow is one of the hardest ones to paint with. It never takes in one coat. And I don't care if it's school bus yellow, regular yellow, doesn't seem to matter. It just does not like to cover in one coat. I'm going to dry this. Be right back. Okay, that's dry. We're going to put a second coat on this part of it. And then, it doesn't need to be completely covered. Just I'd like to have it a little more than it is, and only because this is yellow, so obviously it's a guard of some kind over some piece of machinery, and it's worn out, rusty, and paint's faded off of it. So so it doesn't have to be covered, just a little better than it is. And might as well do some of this. Okay, I'm going to dry this. Then I can paint this side, and I'll see if I like it. Okay, it's all painted. It's faded. Going to be sitting in a rust heap pile of junk, so we're going to call that good. Okay, we'll do that. And now we have, let's see. We have some of this other paint things here. We have some cable, old wire. We're going to paint that black. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to let this stuff kind of dry for a little bit and figure out what I'm going to paint the rest of those. And again, I'm not looking for complete coverage on a lot of this stuff because it's old and it's supposed to be junk. So it's paint faded, not quite covering correctly, rust, things of that nature. Once it's all rusted up and it's at a wash of some dirt or black, then we'll see what it looks like, and it should look like a junk pile. Hi, Shop Kitty. How are you? Okay, I'm going to take a break here for a minute and let this stuff set and figure out what color I want to do the rest of these. So we'll be right back. All right, here we got it. It appears somehow or another my mic shut itself off a while back and I didn't know it. So there's been some narration over some of that. But anyway, I don't know where it cut out yet. got some of this painted, as you can see, and it's all nicely glued down. Okay, there we are. And I think I'm going to call that good. I still have to paint up some of this and then rust it. So while I'm waiting for it to dry, or while it is drying, it's drying enough. Whoops, a little much there. Now there's a couple of different methods you can use for doing this. And I use, this is burnt sienna for rust. There's a few others that other people use. Jason Jensen has used that, and then with a little burnt umber here and there to make the darker rust. So you can do that, and you can use a paintbrush to put it on, or you can use a sponge and just kind of dab it in there, and then do this all over. And this appears it's not quite dry yet, so we're going to hold that on there. Now, one of the things I like to do, give it a little more realism, I guess you could call it, is I like to take, this is why I brought this up, while the paint is still wet, I have some pastels here. Okay, this is kind of old school, but it still kind of works out pretty good if you do it right. We'll use this brush. Now what I'll do is I'll go over this, flaking this off. And then I'll do a little bit of this, hit it with some brown. And then just a little bit of that. I'm going to show you what that kind of looks like there. Okay. Get some rust over here. To me, it seems like the pastels give it a little more texture, and it's rather than just a flat, rusty. And once this dries, it should look like it's flaking rust a little bit. Okay, so we're going to call that good. We're going to put that over here, and then we're going to rust up some of this other stuff. And you can use a paintbrush for this. Yeah, some of this isn't quite dry yet, but I wanted to show you how this is done and how I did some of this. So that's why I decided to go ahead and do some of it now. We're going to add some of this here and there. And I'm not trying to be that neat about it. Okay. It's not a neat, it's rust. It's nothing neat about it. There's nothing, it's rust. It gets everywhere. You can also use a small paintbrush for the smaller things here. I will put some on this. Let me get this, and we will rust up, get in here, and rust up some of this that's there. And as I said, there'll be rust on the ground. There'll be rust a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit everywhere. I also, over here, there's some flocking material that'll be going on this when I'm all finished with it. There'll be some grass and whatnot, and brush or, weeds. That's the final step over there. And if you notice, I have a new book over here. It is one of my children's books. It's Tales of the Old Moose, illustrated by my mother, who now is 87 years old, and she's still an artist. And that's one of the books that I will have at the author book sale coming up soon. And I hope to sell a few books, make a few connections there. I put it there not to entice you to buy. Maybe you can find them on Amazon, or you can go to my website. It'll be in the description. But anyway, I'm just kind of showing them off because I have mentioned in the past I am a writer, and that's there they are. So, and that's just something else I do. Some of this is not quite dry. I may take this off and re-glue that down. I probably should have rusted this up before I put this down, but oh well. This is why I left the tacky glue up here. And then we will and you can rust this up as you want, however you want. Whatever amount you want to do or how you want to do it. This is a bit old school with the pastels. I've seen this done, and I like to do it while the paint, like I said, is still wet, because then it sticks. If you do it any other way, then you would have to throw a little hairspray at it to hold it in place, and I may still do that. I do have some hairspray downstairs that I did keep just for that purpose. Now, somewhere here it is, I have a small paintbrush, a little bit of black, and I'm going to deal with this piece of pipe right here that I forgot. Okay, get this out of the way, and have this, and we're going to hit this pipe just with the pastels while the paint's still wet. and see what we get here. Let's get a little of this. Okay. But you can use a sponge, little piece of torn off sponge. This is one I picked up, big one I picked up at the hardware store. Rip a small piece off and dab it and get some, get some on there. You can also simulate darker rust using the burnt umber and put it down here and there in spots. I'll show you how that works. Put a little bit right here. Don't need much, and we just need a little, and we need a small, there we go. We'll use this paintbrush here, little tiny thing, and just dab here and there. Other modelers use different types of paint to simulate this. And there's probably as many different ways that, you can do this. I'm sure, there's others, and you can find a technique that you like. This is just one I happen to like. So I continued using it because I do like the result on this. So I just went ahead and kept up with it. And of course, it doesn't do me much good to put it on the darker stuff because it really doesn't show up. But we'll put some on this lighter. Right on the edges there. Put a little bit right in there. You notice I'm still using the parchment paper. I kind of like it. And okay, I'm going to call that good for today. Okay, this now is going to have to dry 24 hours, and then I will do a wash on it with some black, and then we'll do the flocking, some grass, little grass tufts here and there, and some flocking. So it will be back tomorrow, and we will finish it up. Okay? I'll see you tomorrow.